Busy entrepreneurs with no time to invest worry me the most because they work incredibly hard in their business and then they build up a pile of cash getting about 4% of interest. And they always say they're too busy to invest. Well, for them, we created model portfolios because what they can do is instead of going through our whole filtered list of stocks and then picking the ones that they might like and then monitoring them for 12 months, 25% stop losses, they don't need to do any of that because they get all the same due diligence and research, all access to all the data, but then we've put it into a model for them. To give you one example, the one that my wife and son are in is what we call the Quality 5 Plus. It's got about 44 stocks in it. It's generated over the last 8 years, 32% per annum. Of course, past performance is no guarantee at all of the future. Okay, for a start, Putin might end the world tomorrow, right? So no guarantee whatsoever. But that's a pretty good chunk of history. And with those, you would buy and hold, even though individual stocks might drop and rise, even if they drop more than 25%. So that gives you peace of mind, hands off, track record, but we do better than that. We then take a projection, what's called a Monte Carlo simulation, and we do a projection forward of all the likely outcomes and the probabilities associated with them. We also explain to you what the pros and cons of a Monte Carlo simulation are. So that gives you a pretty good idea that after 1 year, what might happen after 2, after 3, to make sure it's in line with your expectations. Now, here's the interesting bit. That Quality 5 Plus portfolio with its 32% per annum and its maximum drawdown, that's the figure to look at, the maximum drawdown of just 13.2%. Of course, in the future, it might be worse. So I say to people, well, what if it was double the drawdown of what it had been historically? Let's say it suddenly had a 26% drawdown and the returns weren't 32%, but were just 15%. So it took 5 years to double your money, not 2.5, for instance. Okay, well, fine. You know, in the 1980s, you often said with property, if there was a recession, it would take 5 years to double your money, but it would take just 2.5 to 3 if there was no recession. Those things are out of our hands. By giving people those projections and peace of mind, it stops them doing the two worst things they can do when it comes to investing. First of all, not investing at all because they think they're too busy. Well, I'll give you an example of a client we spoke to just earlier today. He said, I've not had time since December to get into the Quality 5 Plus. And I said, well, okay, that's fine. It just means that on $500,000 of cash, that 10% rise is you're down 50%. Opportunity cost, and leave it another 6 months, you'll be down. You can cut right off 100K for the year that you could have made, but you didn't, assuming it keeps performing as it has done. So whilst there's no guarantee and there's always risk in investing, the worst risk is thinking,